You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/Libsyn. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In October of 1966, a government archivist at the National Archives in Washington opened a footlocker that had been transferred from the Kennedy's family's possession. He was conducting an inventory of materials related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The footlocker contained autopsy materials, photographs, x-rays, tissue samples preserved from the post-mortem examination conducted at the Bethesda Naval Hospital on the night of November 22, 1963. The archivist worked through the inventory carefully, and then he noticed something was missing. The brain of President Kennedy, which had been removed during the autopsy, preserved in formalin, and documented as part of the official autopsy record, was not there. It has never been found. Our history brief today introduces Today in Context. A quick word from our sponsors.
Less support through telehealth, but it feels overwhelming and rushed? Check out orderlymeds.com now. Orderlymeds.com was built to be different. Here, you connect with real doctors who take the time to understand your goals, review your eligibility, and guide you through a plan that's right for you. Orderly Meds provides access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide, including both name brand options and personalized compound versions when appropriate. So you have choices backed by clinical oversight, not guesswork. It's a simpler, more supportive telehealth experience designed around people who want clarity, care, and confidence in their weight loss journey. And your medication is delivered directly to your home in discreet packaging, so your experience stays private from start to finish. Do your research, ask the right questions, then visit orderlymeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. Again, that's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
This day in history. On May 31st, 1889, the Johnstown flood devastated communities in Pennsylvania after the collapse of the South Fork Dam, killing more than 2,000 people in one of the deadliest disasters in U.S. history. On May 31st, 1921, racial violence erupted in Tulsa, Oklahoma, destroying the prosperous black neighborhood of Greenwood in what became known as the Tulsa Race Massacre. Story of the day. The central forensic question of the Kennedy assassination, the question that the Warren Commission addressed, that the House Select Committee on Assassinations re-examined, and that independent researchers have debated for 60 years, is the direction of the fatal shot. Was Kennedy shot from behind, from the Texas School Book Depository by Lee Harvey Oswald alone? Or was there a second shooter, firing from the grassy knoll? The brain, preserved and properly examined, could have provided critical evidence on this very question. The pattern of damage to brain tissue, the entry wound characteristics, the trajectory of the bullet's path through the organ could, under the right forensic examination, have helped establish the direction of the shot with a precision that the original autopsy photographs and x-rays from 1960s alone could not provide. The Warren Commission's conclusion that Oswald acted alone rested substantially on the physical evidence. The physical evidence included the brain, and the brain disappeared. The autopsy itself was, from a forensic standpoint, deeply problematic. And this is an assessment shared by pathologists and forensic experts who have no particular investment in conspiracy theories. Kennedy was shot in Dallas. His body, under Texas law, should have been subject to a forensic autopsy conducted by the Dallas County Medical Examiner. Instead, Secret Service agents physically removed the body from Parkland Memorial Hospital over the explicit objections of the Dallas Medical Examiner, and then flew it to Washington, where the autopsy was conducted at the Bethesda Naval Hospital by military physicians. The Bethesda physicians, while competent medical doctors, had limited experience with gunshot wound forensics. The autopsy was conducted under conditions of extraordinary pressure, with senior military officers present in the autopsy room, with incomplete communication between the Bethesda team and the Dallas doctors who had treated Kennedy, and with procedural irregularities that subsequent investigators have documented extensively. The brain was removed, placed in a container of formalin for preservation, and documented as part of the autopsy record. It was never subjected to the detailed sectional examination that standard forensic protocol would have required. That examination, the kind that could have definitely mapped the bullet's path, was supposed to happen later. Later, however, never came. The chain of custody of Kennedy's brain after the autopsy is well documented, but up to a point. The autopsy materials, including the brain, were transferred to the custody of Kennedy's personal physician, Admiral George Berkeley. Berkeley subsequently transferred them to the Evelyn Lincoln, Kennedy's personal secretary, who placed them in a footlocker in her office at the National Archives. In April of 1965, Robert Kennedy, the president's brother, had the footlocker transferred to his own personal custody. It remained in Robert Kennedy's possession until sometime before October 1966, when it was then transferred back to the National Archives. When the archivist opened it that October, the brain was gone. The inventory of what was missing also included several tissue slides and one of the original autopsy photographs. Robert Kennedy died in June of 1968, assassinated in Los Angeles. He never publicly explained what happened to his brother's brain. No one else has either. The theories about what happened to the brain are, at this point, quite numerous. The most widely accepted explanation among serious researchers, not conspiracy theorists, but historians and forensic experts, is that Robert Kennedy himself removed or ordered the destruction of the brain. The reasoning proposed for this is not sinister in a conspiratorial sense. Robert Kennedy reportedly feared that the brain and the full extent of the damage to it would become a public spectacle, displayed in museums or examined by researchers in ways that he found deeply disrespectful to his brother's memory and dignity. He also reportedly feared that detailed examination of the brain might reveal the full extent of Kennedy's Addison's disease and other medical conditions that the Kennedy family had long concealed from the public. In this interpretation, the brain was not removed to hide evidence of a conspiracy. It was removed to protect a family's privacy and a president's dignity. This explanation is plausible. It is also, it must be said, unverified. Robert Kennedy never confirmed it, and no document has been found authorizing or describing the destruction. The brain simply disappeared from the chain of custody on his watch and was never seen again. The House Select Committee on Assassinations, which reinvestigated the Kennedy assassination between 1976 and 1979, concluded, quite controversially at the time, that there was probably a conspiracy involved in Kennedy's death, based partially on the acoustic evidence from Dealey Plaza. That conclusion has itself been disputed. But the committee also noted, with considerable understatement, that the loss of the brain and other autopsy materials was a serious deficiency in the evidence record. Serious deficiency is diplomatic language for the disappearance of the most important single piece of physical evidence in the assassination of a president. The missing brain has become, over 60 years, a focal point for every variety of Kennedy conspiracy theory. It has been claimed as proof of a cover up by the CIA, the military, the Secret Service, and various other institutional actors. Most of these claims are not supported by any available evidence. What is supported by the available evidence is this: the brain of President Kennedy was part of the official autopsy record. It passed through a documented chain of custody. It disappeared while in the custody of the Kennedy family, and it has never been found or officially accounted for. The History Brief. Today, we begin what I hope will become a recurring segment, where I look at what's in the news today and try to provide some historical context. Let's tackle our first question. Why does buying a home today feel increasingly out of reach for so many people? It's a question dominating headlines, politics, and dinner table conversations across America. But the roots of today's housing crisis stretch back decades, and understanding them means looking at how housing itself changed after World War II. In the years following the war, the United States experienced one of the biggest housing booms in history. Millions of returning veterans needed homes, and developers responded by building massive suburban communities, like Levittown in New York. Cheap land, government backed mortgages, and rapidly expanding highways made home ownership more accessible than ever before. For many Americans, this became the foundation of the so called American dream. But of course, there was a catch. Much of this suburban expansion depended on policies that favored some groups over others. Redlining, discriminatory lending practices, and exclusionary zoning often shut minorities out of the most desirable neighborhoods. At the same time, cities increasingly prioritized single family suburban housing over dense urban development. And those decisions still shape the housing market today. Over time, housing stopped being viewed primarily as shelter and increasingly became an investment. That shift accelerated dramatically in the late 20th century. Home values rose, real estate became tied to personal wealth, and governments encouraged ownership through tax incentives and lending policies. For many families, a house wasn't just a place to live anymore, it became their largest financial asset. Then came the 2008 housing crash. For years leading up to it, banks issued risky mortgages to millions of buyers, while investors poured money into real estate markets. Housing prices soared beyond sustainable levels. When the bubble burst, millions lost their homes, banks collapsed, and the global economy spiraled into recession. But ironically, the aftermath of the crash helped create many of today's affordability patterns. Construction slowed dramatically after 2008, and in many places, it never fully recovered. Fewer homes were built just as populations kept growing. Meanwhile, investment firms began buying large numbers of houses, turning single family homes into rental properties. Add in rising material costs, limited land, restrictive zoning laws, and growing demand in cities, and suddenly housing prices began climbing faster than wages. And that's where we are today. In many ways, the modern housing crisis isn't just about supply and demand. It's the result of decades of historical decisions about suburbs, infrastructure, finance, and what housing is supposed to be: a home or an investment. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.